My name is Dwayne Coulter, and I am 68 years old. I worked as a mechanic at a metal fabrication plant in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for 36 years. I retired 2 years ago. My wife Dolores died 4 years ago. We had one daughter, Merlin, who is now married to Travis Griffin and lives 20 minutes away from me. They don't have any children. I live alone in a small house on the outskirts of town, which Dolores and I bought back in the 80s. My neighbors are quiet, the house is in good shape, and my pension is enough to live on. My days are uneventful. Coffee and the newspaper in the morning, then some chores around the house, and TV in the evening. Merlin visits once every 2 weeks, usually on Sundays, bringing some baked goods and telling me the news. I miss Dolores, but I've learned to live alone. That morning, I got up at 6:30 as usual, drank my coffee, and read the newspaper. The weather was clear and sunny, a perfect autumn day for working in the yard. But instead of doing my chores, I decided to visit my neighbor, Violet Sterling. She lived across the street from me, a widow in her 60s who had worked at the city library for over 20 years. Her husband had died 3 years ago of a heart attack, and since then, I had helped her from time to time with minor repairs and household chores. She was a pleasant, educated woman who always thanked me for my help, but never imposed on me. Violet met me on the porch with a cup of coffee in her hands. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. "Dwayne, I'm so glad you came," she said. "I have a problem with the faucet in my kitchen. The water barely flows, and last night it stopped altogether. I was thinking of calling a plumber, but you know how much they charge for a service call." "Let's take a look," I replied. "Maybe it's nothing serious." I took my tools from the car and followed her into the house. Violet's kitchen was small but cozy, decorated with flowers, the curtains, the tablecloth, even the teapot with roses. There were pots of geraniums on the windowsill, and photos of her late husband Robert and pictures of them together on various trips hung on the walls. The faucet really did work poorly. The water came out in a thin stream. I crawled under the sink, unscrewed the connections. As I thought, the aerator was clogged, and the gaskets were completely dried out. This is a common problem in old houses where the pipes haven't been replaced in 20 years. "You need to go to the store for some parts," I said, climbing out from under the sink and dusting off my knees. "But first I can clean what's there. Maybe that will help temporarily." "Is it expensive?" Violet asked anxiously. "I'm not doing very well financially right now. My grandchildren are in college and I'm helping them out." "It's pennies," I reassured her. "The gaskets and aerator cost $5 or $6. I took apart the faucet and cleaned all the parts with an old toothbrush that Violet brought from the bathroom. The work was slow, but I wasn't in a hurry. After retiring, I had a lot of time, and there weren't many things that made me feel useful. It was nice to tinker with tools and solve simple technical problems. The work at the factory was much more complicated, but the principle was the same: find the cause of the breakdown and fix it. Meanwhile, Violet bustled around, handing me rags and asking if I needed help. It was clear that she was nervous about the breakdown. Things like this are always stressful for a single woman. "Don't worry so much," I said. "It's not a major repair, just routine maintenance." An hour later, the faucet was working almost like new. Violet was delighted, turning the water on and off several times, happy with the good pressure. "Dwayne, you're such a handyman," she said. "Robert was like that too. He did everything himself." I was already thinking of calling a plumber, but that's expensive. They charge $100 just to come to your house. "Nonsense," I replied, putting away my tools. "Neighbors should help each other, especially nowadays when everyone is only thinking about money." As I was gathering my tools, Violet asked for one more favor. She needed to move a heavy bookcase in the living room. The furniture had been left to her by her late husband. It was oak, solid, made in the 60s, but heavy as a tank. It was impossible to lift it alone, and hiring movers was expensive. "If it's not too much trouble," she said, "I want to put it by the window so that it's brighter for reading. Otherwise, I turn on the lamp in the evening, and the light is still dim." The bookcase stood against the far wall of the living room, a massive structure almost as tall as the ceiling. Violet wanted to put it by the large window overlooking the courtyard. First, she had to take out all the books. There were at least 200 of them. Novels, detective stories, some old encyclopedias, books on gardening, photo albums. They were stacked neatly on the sofa and on the floor so that nothing would get damaged. Robert was a great lover of reading, said Violet, carrying another stack. He especially loved historical novels. He said you learn more from books than from school. When the bookcase was empty, I tried to move it. It turned out to be quite heavy, at least 150 kilograms. When you're young, that kind of weight isn't a problem, but at 68, you feel every pound. Slowly, inch by inch, I moved it toward the window. Violet helped, pushing from the other side, although her efforts were of little use. She was a small, fragile woman. Be careful. Don't strain yourself, she said. At your age, your back is no joke. Maybe we should take it apart, piece by piece. Come on, I replied, even though I was already out of breath. I'm not as old as you think. But in reality, I wasn't feeling very well. I had an unpleasant feeling in my chest, as if something was pressing down from the inside. My breathing became heavier, and my temples were throbbing. I put it down to simply not being used to such exertion after retiring. The work at the factory was physical, but there it was gradual, and here it was such a heavy load all at once. We finally got the wardrobe where it needed to be, but it took me a few minutes to catch my breath. I sat down on the sofa and wiped the sweat from my forehead. My heart was beating fast and unevenly. Are you okay? Violet asked with concern. I'm fine, just tired, I replied. Age is taking its toll. Violet was pleased with the result and said that the room was now much cozier. We decided to arrange the books later, after I had rested. She brought me a glass of cold water, which I drank in one gulp. Dwayne, stay for lunch, she suggested. I'm cooking chicken in the oven, and there are potatoes. I can't eat that much on my own, and it's a shame to throw it away. I didn't usually stay with my neighbors for long, preferring to have lunch at home in peace, but that day I agreed. Maybe it was because no one was waiting for me at home, or maybe it was because Violet was a really good cook. Ever since Dolores was alive, we had sometimes visited each other for family dinners. She set the table in the living room, next to the rearranged cupboard. She took out her best plates with gold rims, even laid out napkins and placed a vase with artificial flowers in the center. Sorry, it's not the real set, she said. I only use it for special occasions. Don't be silly, it's fine, I replied. The chicken was juicy with a crispy crust, and the potatoes were fluffy. For dinner, Violet served a salad of tomatoes and cucumbers from her garden and homemade pickles. Everything was delicious, just like home. She talked about her work at the library and complained that young people had completely stopped reading books and were always on their phones. School children come in and ask for help with their essays, but they don't even want to look in an encyclopedia, she said. Everyone searches the internet, but half of what's there is untrue. I listened half-heartedly because the unpleasant feeling in my chest did not go away, but even intensified. I felt a heaviness, as if someone had placed a brick on my chest. It was becoming increasingly difficult to breathe. And they've installed new computers, Violet continued. They say that now the entire catalog will be electronic. They sent us to courses to learn how to work with them. At my age, it's difficult. I'm used to cards. You look pale, she remarked in the middle of her story, looking at me intently. I'm fine, I said, but my voice sounded strange, hoarse. The next second, a pain struck my chest as if someone had hit me from the inside with a heavy hammer. It was a sharp, burning pain like I had never felt before in my life. I grabbed my heart with my hand and doubled over. I couldn't breathe. My vision darkened, and a wave of cold sweat ran through my body. Dwayne, Violet cried, jumping up from the table. What's wrong with you? My God, what happened? I tried to say that everything was fine, but the words wouldn't come out. The pain came in waves, each stronger than the last. My left arm was numb from shoulder to fingertips. My head was buzzing, and black circles floated before my eyes. Violet rushed to the phone in the kitchen. I heard her call the emergency services, hurriedly explaining what was happening and giving the address. Her voice was trembling, but she spoke clearly, like someone who doesn't lose their head in a critical situation. Hurry, please, she said into the receiver. An elderly man, clutching his heart, completely pale. Yes, he's still conscious. The address is Kedravaya Street, number 23. Dwayne, hang in there. The ambulance is on its way, she said, kneeling down next to me. Breathe deeply. Don't panic. I wanted to answer her but could only nod. The pain had subsided a little, but it was still difficult to breathe, each breath coming with effort. Violet brought me a glass of water and helped me take a few sips. The water was cold and refreshed me a little. "Would you like to lie down on the sofa?" she asked. "No, it's easier to sit," I croaked. She sat down next to me and took my hand in hers. Her hands were warm and soft. It was a little comforting. "Everything will be fine," she said. "The doctors will be here soon. They'll help you. The main thing is not to worry." The ambulance arrived in 10 minutes, although it seemed like an hour to me. Two paramedics, young guys in their 30s, examined me quickly and professionally. One measured my blood pressure, the other did a cardiogram on a portable device. They worked smoothly, clearly very experienced. "Blood pressure is 180 over 110. Pulse is 120, said the first one. "There are changes on the cardiogram. It looks like a heart attack," replied the second, studying the tape. "We need to get you to the hospital and fast." They put an IV in my arm right there in the chair and gave me a pill under my tongue. After a few minutes, it became a little easier to breathe. "What's your last name?" one of the paramedics asked. "Colder," I replied. "Age?" 68. "Any chronic conditions?" "High blood pressure. I take pills for it." They carefully placed me on a stretcher and carried me to the ambulance. Violet walked beside me, holding my hand. "I'll call Merlin and tell her what happened," she said. "Do you have her number?" I gave her my daughter's number. In the ambulance, I felt a little better. The paramedics put an oxygen mask on me and gave me some medicine. One of them monitored my condition the whole way to the hospital, checking my pulse and blood pressure every 2 minutes. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Better," I replied through the mask. At the hospital, I was immediately taken to the intensive care unit. There was a whole team of doctors there, a cardiologist, an anesthesiologist, nurses. They ran tests, took another cardiogram, and gave me injections. The cardiologist, a woman of about 45, studied the results carefully. "Myocardial infarction, small focus," she told her colleagues. "We got here early. The prognosis is favorable." I lay in a hospital bed with a bunch of wires connected to various machines and thought about how quickly everything had changed. In the morning, I was a healthy man, helping my neighbor, making plans for the weekend, and now I don't know if I'll live to see tomorrow. Such thoughts come to mind when you realize that death is near. 2 hours later, Merlin ran into the ward. Her face was red and excited, her hair was tousled, and it was clear that she had been speeding. "Dad, how are you feeling?" she asked, running up to the bed. "Violet called and said you had a heart attack." I was so scared, I thought the worst. "I'm better now," I said. "The doctors say the danger has passed." Merlin sat down on a chair next to the bed and took my hand. She was 32 years old, but at that moment she looked like a frightened little girl. There were tears in her eyes. "I was so worried," she said. "The whole way here I thought I'd be too late, that I wouldn't have time to say goodbye to you." "Don't be silly, Ursula," I replied. "I'm not going to die yet." We talked a little more, and she told me that Travis had stayed home and would come to visit tomorrow morning. She said he was upset when he heard the news, but he was busy at work and couldn't leave right away. "How did he find a job?" I asked. "Last time he complained that he was being rejected everywhere." "He found a temporary job," Merlin replied evasively, "as a stocker in a store. Then a nurse came in, a strict woman of pre-retirement age, and said that the patient needed rest and that visits should be limited. 'You can come tomorrow, but not for long,' she told Merlin. 'For now, he needs to rest.' When Merlin left, I was left alone with thoughts that life could end at any moment. When you're young, you don't think about it. It seems like you have forever ahead of you. But now you realize that every day could be your last. I need to spend more time with my family, see my daughter more often." At around 8 o'clock in the evening, Clyde Morton, my best friend since our factory days, stopped by the ward. Clyde was 65, but he was still working as a shift supervisor at the same factory where we used to work together. He was a strong man, broad-shouldered, with gray stubble and attentive gray eyes. We met back in the 70s when we both came to the factory as young guys. 40 years of friendship. "You're something else, Dwayne," he said, entering the ward and taking off his cap. "Violet told me what happened." "How are you feeling?" "Still alive," I replied. "The doctors say I'm lucky they got me here quickly." Clyde sat down on a chair and took a thermos of coffee and some foil-wrapped sandwiches out of a bag. "Hospital food is disgusting," he said, "and the coffee is like swill. Martha made it and said to tell you she's praying for you." Martha was his wife, a kind woman who always cared for her husband's friends as if they were family. "Thank her," I said. We sat there until late in the evening, talking about all sorts of things. The factory where Clyde still worked, the fishing trip they were planning for the following weekend, how quickly time flies and how little we appreciate our health while we have it. Remember when we went fishing on the Rio Grande in the 80s? Clyde asked. You caught a 2-kilogram trout back then. I remember, I smiled. And you sat there all day without a single bite. But I didn't have a heart attack at 68, he joked. Clyde said he would stay the night just in case. The nurse brought him a cot and a blanket. Don't worry about it, Clyde, I said. I have things to do at home, and my wife is worried. Your wife will understand, he replied, spreading out the blanket. You won't be my friend if something happens and I'm not there. Anything can happen in a hospital. Come on, the nurses are here around the clock. Nurses are nurses, but friends are friends, he said seriously. When I had appendicitis, you stayed in the hospital with me too. That was true. 15 years ago, Clyde had acute appendicitis, and the operation was complicated, with complications. I spent 3 nights in the hospital until the danger had passed. So we spent that night like that, me on a hospital bed with an IV and a bunch of wires, Clyde on a cot next to me. I slept poorly, thinking about what would happen next, how I would live with a sick heart, whether I would become a burden to my daughter. Clyde didn't sleep at all, asking every half hour how I was doing, whether I needed a doctor or some water. In the morning, doctor. Ramirez, the cardiologist who treated me, came in. He was a man in his 50s wearing a white coat and carrying a folder of test results. His expression was serious but not gloomy. Mr. Coulter, I have good news, he said, sitting down on a chair next to the bed. The heart attack was minor, and your heart muscle is recovering normally. We can discharge you home. I breathed a sigh of relief. After 3 days in the hospital, I was already tired of hospital food, constant tests, and noise in the corridors. But there is one condition, the doctor continued. You need to be monitored by close relatives for a month. You can't be alone, especially for the first 2 weeks. If you have another attack, someone needs to be there to call an ambulance. What about medication, I asked. I'll write you a prescription, he replied, taking out his notebook. Cardiomagnol every day, Prestarium for blood pressure, a Taurus for cholesterol, no physical activity for a month, no alcohol, a diet low in salt and fat, and you must come back for a checkup in 2 weeks. When the doctor left, I called Merlin. I explained the situation with the monitoring. She immediately offered to take me in. Of course, Dad, stay with us as long as you need to, she said. We have a sofa in the living room that's quite comfortable. Travis doesn't mind, we discussed it yesterday. I don't want to be a burden, I said. Maybe it would be better to hire a nurse? Don't be silly, Merlin said indignantly. You're my father. I'll take care of you. I'll come pick you up tomorrow morning, Clyde, who had been practically living at the hospital all these days, approved of the plan. That's right, he said. It's always better to be with family. And I'll visit to check on you. The next day, Merlin arrived around 10 in the morning. She looked tired with dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing an old jacket and worn jeans. How did you sleep? She asked, helping me pack my things. Fine, I replied. You don't look so good. Nothing, I didn't get enough sleep, she dismissed. Travis had a job interview yesterday and was up late preparing. We signed the discharge papers, got the prescriptions and referrals for tests. The nurse explained how to take the medication and gave us a diet reminder. In the car, Merlin was quiet, focused on the road. How are you doing? I asked. We haven't really seen each other in a while. Fine, Dad, she replied without taking her eyes off the road. I'm working. Travis is looking for a job. What happened to his previous one? Layoffs, she replied curtly. Merlin and Travis lived in a small neighborhood on the outskirts of town, where houses had been built in the 90s for the working class. Single-story buildings with small yards, nothing special, but not slums either. Their house was in the middle of the block, blue in color, with peeling paint on the shutters. When we pulled up, I noticed that the yard was neglected. The grass hadn't been mowed, leaves were clogging the gutter, and the fence was crooked. My house was always tidy. Dolores took care of that, and after her death, I kept it that way myself. Sorry for the mess, Merlin said, opening the door with a key. I haven't had time to clean up. Inside the house, I was in for a shock. I hadn't been here for more than 6 months, only coming for an hour to drink tea. Back then, I didn't pay attention to the details. But now I saw the real picture. Dirty sneakers were lying in the hallway, and there was dirt on the floor. The walls needed painting, and there was a patch of mold growing in the corner. In the living room, there was an old sofa with worn-out cushions, a TV with a cracked screen, and a pile of unpaid bills on the table. "Come in, sit down," said Merlin, hurriedly clearing the papers off the table. Travis was sorting through the bills. Travis was sitting in a chair in front of the TV in a dirty t-shirt and boxer shorts, a can of beer in his hand. He looked unkempt. He hadn't shaved in 3 days. His hair was greasy, and there were food stains on his t-shirt. When we came in, he didn't even get up. "Hi, Dwayne," he said, without taking his eyes off the screen. "How's the hospital?" "Fine," I replied. Travis was 35, but he looked older. He was a big man with broad shoulders, but already had a beer belly. He met Merlin 5 years ago in a bar, and they got married 6 months later. He worked as a loader, a security guard, and on a construction site, but never stayed anywhere for long. "Dad's going to stay with us for a month," Merlin said. "The doctor said he needs to be monitored." "Okay," Travis muttered and took a big gulp of beer. "Are you going to sleep on the couch?" "If you don't mind," I said. "I don't care," he replied. "Just don't turn off the TV. They're showing football." Merlin took me to the kitchen to show me where everything was. The kitchen was small, a bit cramped for 2 people. The stove was old and gas-powered, and the sink was clogged. But what struck me most was the refrigerator. It wasn't working. The door was open, the inside was empty, and water was dripping from the freezer. "Where do you keep your food?" I asked. "We don't really have anything to store right now," Merlin sighed. "The refrigerator broke a week ago. We called a repairman, and he said that it would cost more to repair than to buy a new one, and we don't have the money for a new one." I opened a few cabinets. There wasn't much food: a box of pasta, a can of stew, bread, a few canned goods. The refrigerator, which wasn't working, had only empty shelves. "Merlin, how do you eat?" I asked. "Somehow," she replied, avoiding my gaze. "I go to the store every day and buy a little at a time. Nothing has time to go bad." There was a stack of bills on the table. I couldn't help but notice the red writing on the envelopes. Final notices about the electricity and gas being cut off. Warnings about eviction for non-payment of the mortgage. "What's that?" I asked, nodding at the papers. "Oh, just bills that have piled up," said Merlin, quickly gathering them into a stack. "We'll figure it out somehow." Travis's voice came from the living room. "Merlin, bring me a beer. And some chips if you have them." "Right away," she shouted back. She opened the cupboard, took out another can of beer and a bag of cheap chips. "Doesn't Travis work?" I asked quietly. "He was fired 2 weeks ago," she replied just as quietly. "They said it was a layoff, but I think he just had a fight with his boss." "Travis has a difficult personality. Not everyone likes him." "What about unemployment benefits?" "We're applying, but it takes a long time. And the money isn't much." Merlin took the beer to her husband, and I stayed in the kitchen to think about the situation. It was becoming clear that things were bad for them, much worse than I thought. Their daughter never complained or asked for help, but it turns out they were practically living in poverty. When she came back, I said, "Merlin, I'm going to the store to buy some groceries." "Don't, Dad," she objected. "You just got out of the hospital. You need to rest." "I'll rest later," I said. "Right now, I need to eat properly. For you and me." Travis's voice came from the living room again. "Who's going to cook?" "I can only make scrambled eggs, and not always." "I'll cook," Merlin replied. "Let's order pizza instead," Travis suggested, "or Chinese food." "What are we going to order?" Merlin said irritably. "We don't have any money." "But your old man does," Travis replied casually. "He's a rich pensioner." I didn't like that tone, but I decided to keep quiet for now. I grabbed my jacket and headed to the nearest supermarket. The store was a 10-minute walk away, large with a good selection of products. I filled up a cart with meat, chicken, fish, vegetables, fruit, dairy products, grains, and canned goods. Everything we needed for a week's worth of normal meals. I also picked up laundry detergent, cleaning supplies, and toilet paper, everything that was running low at home. At the checkout, the total came to $210. It was a lot of money, but I could afford it. I had a decent pension, plus savings that I had accumulated over my lifetime. And most importantly, this is my daughter, and if she's having a hard time, I have to help. The cashier, a girl of about 20, helped pack the groceries into bags. "Big family?" she asked politely. "Yes," I replied. "Big family." There were a lot of bags, so I had to call a taxi. The driver helped carry everything to the house. When I walked into the kitchen with the groceries, Merlin gasped. "Dad, why so much?" she said. "That must have been expensive." "It's fine," I replied. "We need to eat properly." Travis heard the noise and came into the kitchen to see what was going on. When he saw the number of bags, he whistled. "Wow," he said. "Turns out the pension fund pays pretty well." "Travis," Merlin scolded him. "It's no big deal," he shrugged. "Just stating a fact." We started unpacking the groceries. The items that needed to be kept cold were temporarily placed in the sink with cold water. The rest were put away in the cupboards. Suddenly, the kitchen looked more lived in. "Thank you, Dad," Merlin said quietly when we were alone. "I don't know what we would have done without you." "Don't thank me," I replied. "It's my duty." "We'll pay you back when Travis finds a job," she promised. "No one is going to pay anything back," I said. "This is family." But I was thinking about something else. How did my daughter end up living like this? Why didn't she ask for help sooner? And what kind of husband was she married to, who at 35 couldn't provide for his family? In the evening, when Travis went to take a shower and Merlin was cooking dinner with the groceries we had bought, I sat down with her at the kitchen table. "Merlin, tell me honestly how things are going," I said. "And don't say, fine." She sighed and put down the knife she was using to chop onions. "Bad, Dad," she admitted. "Very bad. Travis wasn't laid off. He got into a fight with his boss and insulted him in front of everyone. It's his third job in a year." "What about the money?" "We're 3 months behind on the mortgage and 2 months behind on utilities. If we don't pay by the end of the month, they'll evict us. The credit card is maxed out. They won't give us any more." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "It was embarrassing," she replied, her voice thick with tears. "You've worked your whole life, saved money. And by the time we were 30, we couldn't even buy our own house." "Nonsense," I said. "I'm your father. What good are parents if they don't help their children?" Travis came back from the shower wearing a clean t-shirt, but with the same indifferent expression on his face. "What are you whispering about?" he asked. "Discussing plans for tomorrow," Merlin replied. "What's happening tomorrow?" Travis sat down at the table and opened a new can of beer. "Dad needs to go to the doctor to get his prescriptions," Merlin said. "Can I go with you?" Travis asked unexpectedly. "To the city center." "I need to go to the employment office to submit some documents." "Sure," I replied. During dinner, Travis talked about his plans to look for a job. He said he was considering various options: security guard, loader, driver. But it was clear from his tone that he wasn't particularly enthusiastic. "The main thing is not to rush," he said. "It's better to find a good place right away than to change later." "Maybe you should take some courses." "Get a degree," I suggested. "But that takes time, and I need money now." Travis dismissed the idea. After dinner, Merlin made up the sofa in the living room for me. The sofa was uncomfortable. The springs were worn out, but I didn't complain. I went to bed early, tired after the hospital and the excitement of the day. I lay in the dark and listened to Merlin and Travis talking about something behind the wall. Their voices were muffled, but sometimes I could hear individual phrases. Travis was demanding something, and Merlin was explaining. Then the TV turned on louder, and the conversation stopped. He thought about how his daughter's life was not turning out the way he would have liked. At her age, people should have a home, a stable job, plans for the future. But here she was, with constant money problems, an unemployed husband, and the threat of eviction. Maybe he should have intervened earlier. But Merlin had always been independent and didn't like being told what to do. Now, after my heart attack, I had a chance to help them. A month living in their home was an opportunity to understand the situation from the inside and find a way to fix everything. The next morning, while Merlin was at work and Travis was sleeping until noon, I decided to sort out the bills. My daughter left at 7 in the morning, kissed me on the forehead, and said she would be back by 6 in the evening. "Travis will wake up around 11, she warned. "If anything happens, wake me up at work." When the house was quiet, I took a stack of bills from the table and carefully examined each one. The picture was sad. The electricity bill was $430, the gas bill was $380, and the water bill was $210. The phone and internet bill was $150. The worst thing was the notice from the bank about a 3-month mortgage payment delay, with the amount owed being $1,800 plus penalties. The red envelopes contained final warnings. They promised to cut off the electricity in 5 days and the gas in a week. A court hearing was scheduled for the following month to begin the eviction process. I added up all the bills and calculated the total amount. It came to almost $3,000. For me, it was significant, but not critical. Over 40 years of work, I had accumulated a decent amount, plus my pension allowed me to live without counting every dollar. The decision came quickly. My daughter and grandchildren could be here if we weren't living in constant stress over money. What good are my savings if my family's falling apart? I got dressed and went to the bank. A familiar teller, Patricia, who had been serving me for 10 years, worked at the branch on Central Street. "Mr. Coulter, how are you?" she asked cheerfully. "I heard you were in the hospital." "Yes, I had a heart attack," I replied, "but I'm better now." "What are we going to do today?" "I need to pay a few bills," I said, taking out my papers. "Can you do that for me?" Patricia carefully examined the bills. "Of course, we'll pay everything," she said, "but it's a large amount. Are you sure?" "I'm sure, Irana," I replied. The procedure took half an hour. Patricia punched each bill separately. I signed the documents and paid the commission. When everything was ready, she handed me the checks. "All done, Mr. Coulter," she said. "All services will be restored within 24 hours. "Thank you, Patricia." "You're welcome. And take care of yourself. At your age, health is the most important thing." From the bank, I went to an appliance store. I needed a refrigerator, and fast. The salesman, a guy in his mid-20s with a name tag that said Kevin, showed me several models. "What kind of family do you have?" and he asked. "How many people?" "3 adults," I replied. "Then this one will suit you," he said, pointing to a medium-sized white refrigerator. "Samsung, a good brand, 2-year warranty, $850. "I'll take it," I said without haggling. "When should I schedule delivery?" "Today, if possible." "Sure," Kevin nodded. "After 3 o'clock is okay?" "Great." I paid for the purchase with my card and received the documents. Delivery cost another $50, but that was nothing compared to the joy Merlin would get. I got home around noon. Travis had just woken up and was sitting in the kitchen in his boxers and a t-shirt, drinking coffee and looking at his phone. "Where have you been?" he asked without looking up. "I was running some errands," I replied. "What kind of errands?" "You seem sick." "I went to the doctor to get some medicine." That was a half-truth. I was actually going to the doctor, but tomorrow. "Oh, I see." Travis lost interest. "Who's going to cook?" "Merlin is at work." "Cook it yourself," I said. "There's plenty of food." "I don't know how," he grumbled. "The most I can do is scrambled eggs." "Then make scrambled eggs." Travis frowned in displeasure but went to the stove. He cracked 4 eggs into the pan, added salt and pepper. He cooked carelessly, and some shell got into the eggs, but he either didn't notice or didn't want to remove it. "Want some?" he asked. "No, thanks," I replied. "I'm on a diet." "What diet?" "After a heart attack, you can't eat fatty or fried foods." "Come on," Travis waved his hand. "Once won't hurt." He ate the eggs straight from the pan and washed them down with coffee. Then he opened the refrigerator, which wasn't working, and took out a can of beer. "Travis, it's still morning," I remarked. "So what?" he asked in surprise. "I'm unemployed, I can do that." "Maybe you should look for a job." "I am," he replied, showing me his phone. "I'm looking at websites." But I saw that he had a game on his screen, not job sites. At 3 o'clock, the delivery arrived with the refrigerator. 2 movers brought in the appliance, hooked it up, and explained how to use it. Travis watched what was happening with surprise. "Did you buy a refrigerator?" he asked when the movers left. "Yes," I replied. "I needed one." "Don't you feel bad about the money?" "It's expensive." "No, I don't." "How much did it cost?" $850. Travis whistled. "Wow, I don't even have that much money for food." "Find a job and you'll have money," I said. "Easy to say," he grumbled. "Everywhere they require experience and education. All I have are my hands and my back." The new refrigerator immediately changed the atmosphere in the kitchen. I transferred all the food that had been stored in the sink with cold water to it. Now we could buy dairy products, meat, and fish without worrying about them spoiling. Merlin came home from work tired, But when she saw the refrigerator, her eyes lit up. "Dad, what's this?" she asked, not believing her eyes. "A refrigerator," I replied. "I bought it today." "But it's expensive," she exclaimed. "Why did you spend so much?" "We needed it," I said. "How can we live without a refrigerator?" Merlin hugged me tightly, and I could feel her holding back tears. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered. "You have no idea how important this is." At dinner, Travis talked about his job search. He said he had called several places, but they had all turned him down. "Maybe you could get some training," Merlin suggested. "Truck driving lessons, for example." "That costs money," Travis dismissed the idea. "And we don't have any." "What if Dad helps?" she suggested timidly. Travis looked at me with interest. "How much do those courses cost?" I asked. "1,200, Travis replied, "plus exams and medical exams." "I'll think about it," I said. After dinner, as we sat in the living room watching TV, Merlin opened a bottle of wine. "Would you like some, Dad?" she offered. "It's good wine, French." "No, thank you," I replied. "I can't after my heart attack." "Oh, right, I forgot," she said. Travis also had some wine and opened a can of beer. Over the course of the evening, he drank 3 cans and 2 glasses of wine. Merlin limited herself to 1 glass, but a large one. "Do you drink every day?" I asked. "Not every day," Merlin replied. "We just relax after work." "And what kind of work does Travis relax from?" "Dad," Merlin scolded me. "Don't start." Travis was already tipsy and laughed. "Dwayne's right," he said. "What kind of work do I relax from?" "A hard day of doing nothing." "Travis, don't be silly," Merlin said. "What's silly about it?" he continued. "Sitting at home watching TV, drinking beer? It's a good job, but I don't get paid." This conversation went on for several days. Every evening, Merlin and Travis drank, sometimes moderately, sometimes to the point of slurring their words. I watched and thought that this couldn't go on. A week later, when Merlin was at work and Travis was sleeping off yesterday, I called Clyde. My friend answered right away. "Dwayne, how are you?" he asked. "How's your health?" "Better," I replied. "Clyde, I have a request." "Go ahead." "I need to get my son-in-law a job. As a loader or a handyman." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Dwayne, is he normal?" Clyde finally asked. "Can he work?" "I don't know," I replied honestly, "but it's worth a try." "What kind of person is he? Does he drink?" "He drinks," I admitted. "But maybe if he has a job, he'll settle down." Another pause. "Listen, we have a loader quitting," Clyde said slowly. "Next week. I can try to find your son-in-law a job, but on one condition." "What condition?" "If he shows up drunk or causes problems, I'll fire him immediately. I'll be responsible for him." "I understand," I said. "Thank you very much. Have him come by tomorrow with his documents. Tell him it's from me." When Travis woke up, I told him about the job opportunity. "At the factory?" and he asked. "What kind of work?" "Loader," I replied. "The pay is good, and there are benefits." "How much do they pay?" "I don't know exactly, but it's more than unemployment benefits." Travis scratched the back of his head. "Is it hard work?" "All work is hard," I said. "The main thing is that it's honest." "Okay," he agreed. "I'll try." "What documents do I need?" "Passport, employment record book, health certificate?" "Where do I get the certificate?" "At the clinic," I replied. "We'll go tomorrow and get it sorted." In the evening, when Merlin came home from work, I told her about the job opportunity for Travis. "Really?" she said happily. "Dad, you have no idea how important this is." Travis was more reserved about the news. "We'll see," he said. "They might not hire him." "They will if you want to work," I said. We discussed the details over dinner. The porter's salary was $17 an hour, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That came to over $2,000 a month after taxes. "Not bad," Travis admitted. "You can live on that money." "Not only can you live on it, you can pay off your debts," Merlin remarked. "What debts?" Travis asked in surprise. Merlin looked at me questioningly. I nodded. It was time to tell the truth. "Travis, there was a debt for utilities," she said. $3,000. "Was?" he asked. "And now there isn't?" "Dad paid it," Merlin said quietly. Travis looked at me in surprise. "Seriously? 3,000? "Yes," I replied. "I didn't want you to get evicted." "Where did you get that kind of money?" I've been saving my whole life, I said, for situations like this. Travis shook his head. Wow. So now we owe you 3,000? No one owes anyone anything, I said. This is family. Still, it's weird, Travis grumbled. You're living your life, and suddenly it turns out your father-in-law is 100 times richer than you. I'm not rich, I objected. Just thrifty. After dinner, they started drinking again. Travis opened a bottle of whiskey he had stashed somewhere, and Merlin took the wine. By 10 o'clock, both were quite drunk. Dwayne, Travis said, rocking back and forth in his chair, you're a good man. It's a shame I underestimated you before. Thank you, I replied. No, seriously, he continued. Not every father-in-law would pay off his son-in-law's debts. But you did. And you bought a refrigerator. And you found a job. My dad is a gem, Merlin chimed in, her voice also unsteady. He always helps when things get tough. I looked at them and thought that they didn't drink because they had a good life. It was because of hopelessness, stress, and a lack of prospects. Maybe when Travis got a job and they had a stable income, everything would change. The next day, Travis and I went to get a health certificate. There was a line at the clinic, and we had to wait 2 hours. Travis was nervous and smoked outside every half hour. What if I don't pass the medical exam? He asked. You'll pass, I reassured him. You're a healthy man. They gave us the certificate after all. The doctor noted that his health allowed him to work as a loader, but recommended that he quit smoking and drink less. How did he know I drink? Travis wondered on the way home. You can see it in the tests, I replied. Your liver is enlarged. Nonsense, he dismissed. Everyone our age has an enlarged liver. That evening at dinner, Merlin asked how the medical examination had gone. Fine, Travis replied. I'm going to the factory tomorrow to submit my documents. What if they don't take you? She worried. They will, I said. Clyde promised. But I thought to myself that the main problem wasn't whether Travis would get the job. The main problem was whether he would be able to keep it. Judging by his attitude toward responsibility and discipline, the chances were slim. But it was worth a try. Travis started working at the factory on Monday. Clyde personally took him to the personnel department and introduced him to the shift supervisor. The work was simple: unloading trucks with metal, stacking blanks in the warehouse, and helping the crane operators. It was physically demanding, but did not require any special qualifications. The first 3 days went smoothly. Travis left at 7 in the morning and returned at 5:30 in the evening, tired but sober. He complained of back pain, the heavy loads, and his unfriendly colleagues. Everyone there is so gloomy, he said at dinner. They work in silence and can't even say hello properly. It's a factory, not a dating club, I replied. The main thing is that there's work. Of course, Merlin agreed. Dad's right. The main thing is that they'll pay the salary by Thursday. Travis had settled in a bit. He said he had met a few workers and that the shift supervisor wasn't picking on him. How's Clyde? I asked. Fine, Travis replied. He stops by sometimes to check on things. He says he's satisfied so far. On Friday, Travis was supposed to receive his first paycheck for the week. I waited for him to come home so I could hear how his day went. He came home at 7:30 p.m., an hour and a half later than usual. His face was red, his gait was unsteady, and he smelled strongly of alcohol. Travis, are you drunk? Merlin asked, not reproachfully, but rather with interest. A little, he smiled. We celebrated the end of the work week with my coworkers. Where did you celebrate? I asked. At a bar near the factory, he replied, plopping down in a chair. Everyone goes there after their shift. It's a tradition. Didn't Clyde say you weren't allowed to drink? I reminded him. Come on, Travis waved me off. The workday is over. What am I, a monk or something? Merlin brought him a glass of water. How's the salary? She asked. $340 a week, Travis replied, pulling crumpled bills out of his pocket. Not bad for a start. Great, Merlin said happily. Now we can plan our budget. Travis finished his water, then got up and opened the refrigerator. Do we have any beer? He asked. Yes, Merlin replied. I bought some yesterday. She took out a can of beer and handed it to her husband. He took a big sip with pleasure. Merlin, Travis said, let's really celebrate today. I found a job and got my first paycheck. How? She asked, her eyes lighting up with interest. Let's invite our friends over and have a proper drink, he suggested. It's been a long time since we got together. Great idea, Merlin exclaimed happily. I'll call Jessica and ask her to come over with the girls. What will Dad say? Travis asked, winking at his wife. Let him be happy for us, Merlin laughed. Or he can go to his bedroom if he doesn't like it. I could see that they were both excited about the idea of a party. Maybe we shouldn't, I said. Tomorrow is Saturday. We can relax. Dad, don't be a killjoy, Merlin said. My husband found a job. It's a celebration. What's the big deal? Travis agreed. The man worked hard. He has a right to relax. He took out his phone and started calling someone. Brad? Hi, it's Travis. Come over, we'll celebrate. Yes, I found a job. Of course there will be drinks. Okay, I'll be waiting. Then he called someone else. Ricky? Listen, I'm having a party tonight. Come with the girls if you want. Same address. Merlin also started calling her friends. Jess? Hey, baby, we're going wild tonight. Travis got his paycheck. Of course there will be alcohol. Bring vodka. How many people did you invite? I asked. About 8, Travis replied. It's not a crowd. Where's the booze? We don't have anything. I'll go buy some now, Travis said. Dwayne, give me some money for alcohol. No, I replied. Travis looked at me in surprise. Why? Because it's a stupid idea, I said. You just started working, and you're already throwing parties. Come on, said Travis. It's only $100. You're rich. No, I repeated. Dad, you're acting like a child, Merlin interjected. Give your husband the money. He deserves it. Exactly, Travis agreed. I've been working like a slave all week. No, I said for the third time. Travis's face darkened. Merlin, talk to your father, he said. Explain to him that a man has the right to celebrate his success. Dad, please, Merlin pleaded. It's not like we celebrate every day. No means no, I replied. Travis got up from his chair and walked toward me. Dwayne, don't be a greedy old man, he said, his voice taking on a threatening tone. Give me the money, and everything will be fine. I said no, and I mean no, I repeated. Suddenly, Travis grabbed me by the shoulders and started shaking me. Give me your wallet, he shouted. You owe me. I work. I support my family. Travis, that's right, Merlin supported him. He really owes us. Travis reached into my jacket pocket where my wallet was. I tried to resist, but he was stronger. Give it to me, he yelled. Greedy old man. He snatched the wallet from my pocket and jumped aside. We did it, Merlin cheered, clapping her hands. Travis opened the wallet and counted the money. $400, he said with satisfaction. Just enough for a good party. Travis, give the wallet back, I said, getting up from the sofa. Don't come any closer, he warned, or it'll be worse. Dad, don't ruin our party, Merlin added. We'll give it back later. Travis took his car keys and headed for the door. I'll be back soon with the groceries, he said. You guys get ready to welcome the guests. Happy shopping, dear, Merlin called after him. The door slammed. Merlin turned to me with a satisfied look. Dad, don't be upset, she said. We just want to have some fun. Merlin, do you understand what happened? I asked. My husband robbed me with your support. What robbery? She laughed. He took family money. You support us after all, Travis returned an hour later. He was even more drunk than before, apparently having stopped at a bar on the way. As he turned into the yard, something happened that I will never forget. Travis, apparently due to his intoxication, misjudged his maneuver and crashed his car into the Coleman neighbor's wooden fence at high speed. There was a crash of breaking boards and the sound of shattered headlight glass. Damn it! Travis shouted as he jumped out of the car. It's okay, Merlin shouted, running out into the yard. The fence was old. The fence was knocked down about 5 meters. The car was dented in the front, but it was still drivable. Oh well, screw it, Travis laughed. We'll put up a new one someday. Exactly, Merlin agreed. Let the neighbors be happy. We'll have something new. He began unloading alcohol from the trunk as if nothing had happened. Merlin helped, carrying bottles into the house. Delbert and Nancy Coleman, elderly neighbors in their 70s, ran out of their house. What's going on here? Delbert shouted. Have you gone completely mad? Calm down, old man, Travis replied, swaying from the alcohol. Nothing terrible has happened. Nothing terrible, Nancy exclaimed indignantly. You knocked down our fence. We'll put up a new one, Merlin promised. We'll make it even better. When will you put it up? Delbert demanded. When we put it up, we'll put it up, Travis snapped. And anyway, it was crooked, Merlin added. We did you a favor. At that moment, Travis's friends arrived. 3 cars pulled up and 6 people got out, men and women in their 30s, all with cans of beer in their hands. Trev, shouted one of them, a big guy with tattoos on his arms. What's all this commotion? Oh, I accidentally knocked down a fence, laughed Travis. And these old folks are complaining. What complaints? Asked one of the women, a blonde in a short skirt. A fence isn't a person. No one got hurt. She's right, Merlin agreed. Why worry about some boards? Delbert and Nancy exchanged glances. It was clear that they were scared. We're calling the police, Delbert said. Go ahead, Travis replied. Let them call, Merlin laughed. We'll invite the cops over for beer. The whole group picked up a case of vodka and bottles and headed for the house. The Colemans remained standing by the ruins of their fence. We have to do something, Nancy said to her husband. I'll call the police, Delbert replied, taking out his phone. But the drunken group heard these words. Brad, a burly man with tattoos who turned out to be the leader of Travis's friends, approached the elderly couple. Grandpa, don't call the police, he said threateningly. We're talking nicely. Get off our property, Delbert demanded, but his voice was shaking. Or what? Brad asked, moving closer. Or we'll call the police, Nancy repeated. Go ahead and call them, said the blonde. I'm tired of your threats. That's right, Merlin shouted. I'm tired of your whining. Delbert started dialing the emergency number. Brad snatched the phone from him and threw it on the ground. I told you not to call, he said calmly. Good job, Brad, Merlin exclaimed. You did the right thing. You have no right, Delbert shouted. We do, Brad replied and pushed the old man in the chest. Delbert fell. Nancy rushed to her husband, but Brad grabbed her arm. Quiet, Grandma, he said. It'll only make things worse. Let's teach them a lesson, Merlin shouted, so they know how to ruin their neighbors' lives. The rest of the group surrounded Delbert as he lay on the ground. Some kicked him, others spat on him. Nancy cried and begged them to leave her husband alone. You're doing the right thing, Merlin encouraged them. Let them know their place. I ran out of the house when I saw what was happening. Stop it, I shouted. What are you doing? Who's this? Brad asked. This is Merlin's dad, Travis explained. Don't pay any attention to him. Dad, go home, Merlin yelled. This is none of your business. It is my business, I said. You're beating up defenseless people. We're not beating anyone up, Brad objected. We're just explaining the rules of good manners. Exactly, Merlin agreed. We're explaining how to behave. Delbert struggled to his feet, leaning on his wife. His lip was split and he had a bruise on his forehead. We're going home, he said, and we're locking the door. Tomorrow we'll file a report with the police. Get lost, Brad replied. And remember, if you call the police, we'll be back. We'll show you, Merlin shouted after them. You old farts! The Colemans hurried home. I heard them lock the door. The drunken group headed for our house carrying alcohol. Travis opened the door and let everyone into the living room. Let's get this party started, he shouted. Finally, Merlin rejoiced. It's about time. They opened bottles and turned the music up to full volume. A real drinking party began in the house. They shouted, laughed, and danced. Merlin drank as much as everyone else and laughed louder than anyone. This is the life, she shouted, waving a bottle of vodka. This is a party. Someone broke a glass, someone spilled wine on the sofa. Merlin just laughed. It's okay, she said. The main thing is to have fun. I went to Merlin's bedroom, locked myself in, and lay down on the bed. My head ached from the noise and the horror of what was happening. I realized that my daughter was lost forever. The drinking continued late into the night. By midnight, everyone was so drunk they could barely stand. The music was blaring, someone was singing karaoke, some were swearing. Merlin was among the most intoxicated. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, the noise suddenly stopped. Then I heard voices in the yard and car doors slamming. I looked out the window and saw that the whole group had gone outside. Travis was walking to his car, staggering and waving a bottle of whiskey. Merlin was hanging on his arm, barely able to stand. Where are my keys? Travis shouted. Who took my keys? Travis, you're too drunk to drive, Brad said. Shut up, Travis replied. I know how much I've had to drink. That's right, honey, Merlin agreed. You're the best driver there is. Travis found his keys in his pocket and got into the car. The engine started on the third try. "Hey, old folks," Travis shouted toward the Coleman house. "Come out. I want to talk to you." No one came out of the house, but I saw lights in the windows. The Colemans were awake, probably calling the police. "Come out, I said," Travis repeated and stepped on the gas. "Show them, honey," Merlin shouted. "Teach those old goats a lesson." The car lurched forward, straight toward the neighbor's house. Travis didn't slow down. On the contrary, he pressed the gas pedal to the floor. "Yes," Merlin shouted. "That's right. Demolish their whole house." "Travis, stop!" Brad shouted, but it was too late. The car crashed into the wall of the Coleman house at full speed. There was a deafening roar. The brick wall collapsed. The car broke through and drove straight into the living room. Dust, brick debris, and glass shards flew in all directions. The alarm of a neighboring house went off, blaring throughout the neighborhood. The drunk group stared in shock at what was happening. Then Brad shouted, "Is Travis alive? Travis, how are you?" Travis's voice came from the hole in the wall. "I'm alive. The car is stuck." "Everything's fine, honey. You're a hero. Let's go in there," Brad commanded. "We'll get him out." The whole group rushed through the hole into the ruined house. Merlin climbed in ahead of everyone, laughing and waving a bottle. The Colemans' cries could be heard from deep inside the house. Apparently, they had locked themselves in the bedroom and were calling for help. "Where are the old folks?" Merlin yelled. "Let's find them and have a proper talk." "They're in the bedroom," Travis replied. "The door's locked." "Good," Merlin shouted. "Let them come out and apologize." They began to break down the door to the bedroom where the frightened old couple was hiding. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. 3 cars with flashing lights and sirens. The police surrounded the house and shouted through a loudspeaker, "Come out with your hands up, immediately!" The drunken group tried to escape through the backyard, but the police were already waiting for them. A scuffle ensued. Some were knocked to the ground, some were handcuffed. Travis was pulled out of the car and also handcuffed. He was covered in blood, apparently having hit his head on the steering wheel. But he remained conscious and continued to shout. "I didn't do anything," he yelled. "It was an accident." Brad and another guy were also arrested. Merlin tried to lunge at the cop, who was taking Travis away. "Let my husband go," she screamed. "You have no right." "Calm down, ma'am," said the police officer. "I won't calm down," Merlin yelled. "You're all jerks, damn fascists." Travis was taken to the car. Merlin yelled curses at the police after him. "I'll get you out of this, honey," she yelled. "Those bastards will pay for this." The police cars drove away. Merlin stood in the middle of the yard, swaying from the alcohol, and continued to shout. "Assholes!" she yelled at the departing cars. "You're all assholes!" Then she tried to walk to the house, but her legs wouldn't obey her. She took a few steps and fell right onto the grass. "Travis," she muttered and closed her eyes. So she remained lying on the ground, drunk as a skunk, in the middle of the mess she and her husband had made. I watched it all from the window and realized that my daughter was lost for good. This was no longer the person I had raised. This was a stranger who rejoiced in destruction and violence. I woke up early, around 6 in the morning, to the sound of sirens. Outside the window, the red and blue lights of emergency vehicles were flashing. I got out of bed, looked out the window, and was horrified by what I saw. The yard looked like a war zone. There were shards of glass, broken bricks, and pieces of wood from the demolished fence scattered everywhere. Travis's car was sticking out of the Coleman house wall like a giant metal wedge. Half of their living room was destroyed. A fire truck, an ambulance, and 2 police cars were parked on the street. Employees in helmets and reflective vests were rushing back and forth, assessing the damage and photographing the scene. Merlin was lying on the grass in front of the house in the same dress she had worn yesterday. Her hair was tousled, her makeup smeared, but she was breathing evenly. An empty vodka bottle lay next to her. I went out into the yard. A local police officer, a man in his 40s, approached me. "Are you the owner of the house?" he asked. "I'm the owner's father," I replied. "I see. What about the woman?" He nodded toward Merlin. "She's my daughter. She got drunk yesterday. We need to wake her up. We have some questions." I walked over to Merlin and shook her shoulder. She opened her eyes and looked around with a dazed expression. "Dad?" she asked hoarsely. "What's going on?" "The police want to talk to you," I replied. Merlin sat down on the grass and looked around. She saw the destroyed house of her neighbors and the police cars. "Where's Travis?" she asked anxiously. "In jail," replied the police officer. "He's been arrested on several charges." Merlin's face contorted with anger. "What was he arrested for?" she shouted. "He didn't do anything." "Ma'am, your husband destroyed the neighbor's house," the police officer said calmly. "That's a serious crime." "He didn't destroy anything," Merlin protested, standing up. "It was an accident." "An accident?" the policeman asked in surprise. "Witnesses say he deliberately sped up and rammed into the wall." "The witnesses are lying," Merlin shouted. "My husband is innocent." The policeman wrote her words down in his notebook. "Ma'am, you will also be charged," he said, "for complicity in the assault on your neighbors." "What assault?" Merlin flared up. "We didn't touch them." "The victims have injuries," replied the policeman, "and many witnesses." Merlin turned to me. "Dad, tell them we didn't hit anyone," she demanded. I remained silent. "Dad," she repeated louder, "tell the truth." "The truth is that you beat up the old people," I said. Merlin was taken aback. "How can you say that?" she protested. "I'm your daughter." "You were my daughter," I replied. The police officer finished his report and left. Merlin remained standing in the middle of the yard, swaying from her hangover. "Dad, we need to get Travis out of there," she said. "Right away." "Why?" I asked. "Why?" "He's my husband," she cried. "We're a family." "Yesterday you supported everything he did," I said. "You were happy when he destroyed the house." "I was drunk. I didn't understand what was happening," she excused herself. "You understood perfectly well," I replied, "and you approved." Merlin went into the house and I followed her. Inside it was a complete mess. Broken dishes, alcohol stains, cigarette butts on the floor. It smelled of alcohol and vomit. "We need to find out how much the bail is," Merlin said, taking out her phone. She called the police station and got the information. $5,000, she told me. "Dad, give me the money." "I won't," I replied. Merlin stared at me. "How can you not? He's my husband." "Your husband is a criminal," I said. "Let him sit in jail." "Dad, don't be ridiculous," she protested. "Travis is a good man. He just had too much to drink yesterday." "A good man doesn't destroy other people's homes," I replied. "But it was an accident," Merlin shouted. "He didn't mean to hurt anyone." "He did," I said. "And you did. I saw how happy you were." Merlin sat down on the sofa and buried her head in her hands. "Dad, please," she asked, calmer now. "Help us." "I won't drink anymore. I promise." "I don't believe you," I replied. "Then help us for Mom's sake," she appealed to my emotions. "Your mother would be horrified by what you're doing," I said. Merlin got up from the sofa and came close to me. "Listen, old man," she said, her voice hardening. "You owe us. For the place to stay, the food, everything we've given you." "What have you given me?" I asked, surprised. "A roof over your head for a month," she replied. "Care, attention. I've been supporting you myself this month," I reminded her. "It doesn't matter," Merlin dismissed. "You still have to help the family." I realized it was useless to talk to her. She was completely on her husband's side, ready to justify any of his actions. "Okay," I said. "I'll go and post bail." "That's right," Merlin rejoiced. "I knew you would help." From home I drove to the bank, then to the police station. It took 2 hours to process the bail. $5,000 were debited from my card. Travis was released at lunchtime. He looked bad. His face was swollen, his clothes were dirty, but he was in a fighting mood. "Thanks for getting me out," he said to me. "I knew you wouldn't abandon your family." On the way home, he talked about prison. "There are some great guys there," he said. "Understanding men. They say that with a good lawyer, you can get off with a suspended sentence." "Is a lawyer expensive?" Merlin asked. "A good one costs $10,000, Travis replied. "But it's worth it." He looked at me in the rearview mirror. "Dwayne, you'll help with the lawyer, right?" he asked. When we got home, the scene of destruction looked even worse. The Coleman house was half destroyed, and our yard was littered with debris. Travis got out of the car and surveyed his work. "Not bad," he said with satisfaction. "Impressive." "Yes, dear," Merlin agreed. "You showed them." Delbert Coleman was standing in the ruins of his house with an insurance company representative. When he saw us, he came over. "Mr. Griffin," he said to Travis, "the damage is $50,000. When will you be paying?" Travis laughed. Grandpa, that's not my problem, he replied. You have insurance, so take it up with them. We don't have insurance for intentional destruction, Delbert replied. Who said it was intentional? Merlin protested. It was an accident. An accident? Delbert didn't believe it. Your husband deliberately sped up and rammed our house. He didn't ram anything, Merlin shouted. Don't slander my husband. We went into the house. Travis immediately opened the refrigerator and took out a beer. Now we can relax, he said. Travis, maybe you shouldn't drink, I timidly suggested. After yesterday, Travis looked at me with a smirk. Dwayne, have you forgotten who's in charge here, he asked. This is my daughter's house, I replied. My wife's, Travis corrected, which means it's mine, and I do what I want here. That's right, honey, Merlin agreed. Daddy forgot his place. Travis sat down in an armchair and took a big gulp of beer. Dwayne, he said, now let's talk seriously. I need a lawyer for $10,000. No way, I replied. Travis's face darkened. No way, okay, enough already. Dad, what's wrong? Merlin asked in surprise. We're family. You're not my family, I said. You're just using me. Travis got up from his chair and came up close to me. Listen, old man, he said threateningly. You're my free slave. And don't think I appreciate you. I was stunned by such insolence. What did you say? What I think, Travis replied calmly. You're our slave. You pay our debts, you put up collateral, you feed us, just like a slave should. I looked at my daughter and son-in-law and didn't recognize them. When did they turn into such monsters? I see, I said. Then I've had enough. I got up from the couch, picked up the phone, and dialed Clyde's number. Clyde, it's Dwayne. Remember when you got my son-in-law a job? I remember, Clyde replied. What about it? Fire him, I said. Right now. What happened? He's a criminal. He destroyed a house and beat people up. I don't want someone like that working at our factory. Understood, Clyde said. I'll fire him on Monday. Travis listened to the conversation in bewilderment. What are you doing? He asked. I'm firing you, I replied, putting away my phone. You have no right, Travis protested. I sure as hell do. Travis's face turned red with anger. You son of a bitch, he shouted. How dare you? Easy, I replied. Now listen to what else I'm going to do. I looked at Merlin and Travis. Tomorrow I'm going to the police and testifying against both of you, I said. I'll testify on the Coleman side. I'll tell them how you beat them and how happy you were to see their house destroyed. Dad, you're crazy, Merlin gasped. No, I've finally come to my senses, I replied. I understand what kind of people you are. But I'm your daughter, she shouted. You were my daughter, I said. Now you're an accomplice to crime. You wouldn't dare, Travis said threateningly. I would, I replied calmly, and I'll make sure you both get the maximum sentence. Dad, think about it, Merlin cried. We didn't do it on purpose. We were drunk. You knew what you were doing, I said, and you enjoyed it. I went to the bedroom and packed my things into a bag. I couldn't stay here any longer. Dad, don't go, Merlin shouted. We'll fix everything. It's too late to fix anything, I replied. You've shown your true colors. If you leave, we'll hate you, Travis shouted. You already hate me, I replied. You were just hiding it. Leaving the house, I headed for the Colemans' ruined home. Through the hole in the wall made by Travis's car, I could walk right into their living room. Delbert and Nancy were sitting at the kitchen table, drinking tea. Insurance documents and repair bills lay on the table. When they saw me, they tensed up. Mr. Coulter, Delbert said. What do you want? I want to apologize for my daughter and son-in-laws, I said, and offer my help. They looked at each other in surprise. What kind of help? Nancy asked. I'll testify against them in court, I said. I'll tell the whole truth about what I saw. But they're your family, Delbert said in surprise. They were family, I replied. Now they're strangers who have hurt you. Are you sure you won't change your mind? Nancy asked cautiously. I won't change my mind, I said firmly. I have principles. We talked for an hour. I told them all the details of last night, explaining that Merlin was not a victim, but an active participant in all the atrocities. She encouraged her husband when he beat you, I said. She was happy when he destroyed your house. She called you old goats. The Colemans wrote down my words to pass on to their lawyer. Mr. Coulter, Delbert said goodbye. Thank you. Without your testimony, it would have been difficult for us to prove their guilt. I'll make sure they get the maximum sentence, I promised. They must answer for everything they've done. Leaving my neighbor's house, I took one last look at the house where my former daughter lived. Merlin's silhouette flashed in the window. She was looking at me, but I turned away. We are no longer a family. They chose their path, a path of violence and destruction. And I chose mine, a path of justice and honor. Tomorrow I will go to the police and tell them the whole truth. Let them answer for their crimes, even if it costs me my last family ties. Some things are more important than blood, honor, for example, and human dignity.